Man, oh man, do we have a lot to talk about. When I tell you guys that we have a plethora of topics to break down in this jam-packed Big Mets update segment, I truly do think that's an understatement, folks. How you doing, folks? It is June 16th, 2025 at the time of this video dropping, and the Mets have a massive week beginning this Tuesday against the Atlanta Braves for their first series against Atlanta, and we're going to preview more of that tomorrow for you guys because today we're going to get into our further reactions from that blockbuster out of nowhere. Rafi Devers is a San Francisco Giant, and we broke that down in a live show this past night on the platform, as well as a separate video on the WardyNYM YouTube channel as we went deeper in the editing, as well as really how bad this looks immediately for Red Sox fans when looking at that lopsided trade. Because speaking of the Red Sox and their fans, I have to wonder how they feel about the potential trade for Jarren Duran, because Duran is now the hottest trade commodity outside of Aroldis Chapman leading up to the deadline for the Red Sox. And while there is some believing that they're not going to trade, there are many others that do believe that this is a start of many moves that happen for them from now to the deadline. So let's get into the trade target, Jarren Duran, his current connection to the Mets, and how things may be greater than ever before for a Duran trade to actually happen by the deadline, and why exactly that is. We're also going to expand as to the key health statuses for guys like Mr. Kodai Senga, the latest on his IL stint, Manaea, Frankie Montas. How concerned, if at all, should we be with their lack of necessarily positive rehab outings that we've seen on the outcome front? We look at the key kids, that being Anil McLean and Jonathan. Ton especially is dominated again there for the Rumble Ponies. He is now all set to make his start there in Syracuse, and we'll get into when exactly that could potentially be. We'll talk more there on Jose Siri, as well as what's going on with key guys in Mark Vientos and Brooks Raley, both out with injury, but we have some really important news to get into on the front of them both today, and our discussion along with everything else happening at Metsland, including key prospect Elian Pena, who we signed to a $5 million signing bonus this past year. We finally have some positive news on his front, among many others. So sit back, get relaxed, and get ready for what's going to be a jam-packed Big Mets update segment. But before we get into today's video, folks, I'm really excited to announce today's sponsor, because not only is it just because they're a sponsor, but they're a product that I've been actively utilizing, and they have certainly helped me, especially when it comes to calming down. That is our great friends here at IndaCloud, because IndaCloud, folks, if you're 21 and older, just like me, you are eligible to utilize their products here, and they have you covered on all things hemp-derived THC. And as someone who personally likes to utilize these products mainly for winding down a night, getting set to go to bed versus having a restless mind at night that I otherwise find myself having, these products have been absolutely clutch, and I hope you find yourself having interest in these should you go out to seek them, because they have a variety of ones to choose from. The ones I've been utilizing the most by far right now are their IndaCloud Bliss gummies before bed. They are 5 milligrams each. I usually utilize around 10 milligrams each of the THC, and they get the job done for me around 30 to 40 minutes, and you really start to feel them kick in. I'm kind of sinking in my bed in the best way possible. They're just so comfortable. I don't know how else to explain it. You also have their rope gummies as well, their THC products that you can utilize. This is out of 150 milligrams. They have popping candy as well. No, I'm not joking, where as soon as you pop in your mouth, they're going to crack just the way that you would see other candy do. And this is the nighttime version. This is the one that I personally have utilized, and I did like quite a bit. It's very sweet. Haven't utilized the daytime one yet, and there are also other gummy versions, whether you're going to have their various soda flavors like orange soda here, these little gummies, or you guys are going to have green apple. They also have strawberry, grape, you name it. And if you're more of a purist, maybe you like to go more of the smoking route, they have pre-rolls as well. So again, guys, why do I love IndaCloud so much, utilizing the products? Well, as someone who's not really trying to get as uplifted, even though you can certainly do that with these products, I like to have a calm situation happen, getting set for bed. And that's where these in particular, and these so far from all the products that I've utilized, have really gotten the job done for me. So if you guys have interest, especially in hemp-derived THC products, whether it's to be uplifted, elevated, or more like me, the latter, which is to be calm, cool, and comfortable, getting set for a good night's sleep, they have you covered, everybody. So head over there with our friends at IndaCloud. Again, you got to make sure you are 21 or older. That's very important, and that way you can float above the stress here, because IndaCloud is giving away to all new customers 25% off their first order plus free shipping. Again, to all new customers, that is 25% off plus free shipping. Just utilize our promo code that you guys see right down there at Wardy, or click the link down below in the description to utilize said code. That's indacloud.co, INDACLUD, I should say, .co. Use code WARDY one more time, everybody, for free shipping plus 25% off your first order. And when you order, make sure you fill out that little quick survey that they have, because it really helps support the platform, as obviously it helps keep IndaCloud sending you the good stuff. I'm sure you're not going to complain about that if you find yourself enjoying the products. So go ahead, tell your future self you got it covered, then grab a gubby and vibe out with our great friends at IndaCloud. Shout out to them once more. All right, folks, let's begin here with a fun conversation. For you guys, let me know in the comments down below. Are you for or against the new All-Star hats have officially dropped for 2025? As we see, we have two different variations, actually. The workout hat that is not Mets colors, but has the Mets logo. And then we do have the actual Mets hat there for the All-Star game itself. Now, I'm not a 5-panel guy, so this is not something that I personally love that I'm going to rock. However, I don't hate the design by any stretch whatsoever. And I did see the jerseys that they dropped as well, just for NL in general. I don't think that they look terrible. Again, these hats could have been 10 times worse. Don't love them, but don't hate them either. I'm kind of right around middle of the pack. Would I go out of my way to rock this personally? Probably not, but do I think it's a cool hat, especially with the stars on top there to represent the All-Star game? I do think it's cool, and I like the fact that it appears that they didn't go too extra there on the simplicity of the design. That's another thing that I like as well. I feel like there have been some years where we're just kind of going a little too off from what we otherwise should be doing there for representing our team there of the All-Star game. But you guys let me know again in the comments down below, and thank you so much for doing exactly that. Because now, folks, let's begin the discussion here that I know many of you guys probably clicked on this video, so I don't want to waste any more time for your sake. And let's talk about here, yes, Jarren Duran. Because Jarren Duran is a player that we highlighted twice over the past 2 weeks on the platform. One being in just the potential of Jarren Duran trade actually happening. The second, he was part of our top 10 Mets trade targets video that you guys can definitely check out on the platform in case you haven't already. But there are a lot of pros and certainly some cons that go in hand with Jarren Duran, the 28-year-old outfielder that bats from the left side. Notable that he bats from the left side for people that are wondering why would the Mets have interest in Duran. Well, they've already been, kind of, softly connected to him in main part because of the Mets' lack of depth in center field. And now that Jose Siri, and this goes in hand with our Jose Siri latest, everybody, Siri unfortunately has a setback. We heard 2 to 3 days ago from Carlos Mendoza. We just didn't get a chance to really break it down thoroughly more on the channel. And I am the kiss of death with these players, and I will take full responsibility, everybody. I just can't meet not only players rehabbing, but specifically players named Jose rehabbing, because I met Jose Quintana 2 years ago in spring training at First Watch breakfast brunch spot. And then hours later, after he told me he's feeling good and everything, Mike Puma of the New York Post announced that he has a lesion on his rib and that he's going to be out longer than expected. So it's like, great. I met Jose Siri, I kid you not, when I was in LA for that week there when the Mets were in LA just a week plus ago there. And I bumped into him walking around in Beverly Hills. I saw him right next to me there at a light, and I just chopped up with him for a couple minutes. Very nice guy. And now he had himself a setback too. So I'm sorry. It's clearly my fault, everybody. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again to the best of my abilities. I'll just ignore next time I see a Mets player currently on the injured list just strolling around by me. But point is, everybody, is that given Jose Siri's injury, and even as great as Tyrone Taylor has been defensively, and he has been a dynamo. Tyrone Taylor's literally been one of the most valuable center fielders in all of the National League. And no, I'm not joking. He actually has been tremendous to the point that he has been the second most valuable per WAR out of the National League East thus far. I mean, even greater than Michael Harris. Like, are you kidding me? So Tyrone Taylor has done his part, but the idea of the Mets having a lefty bat option to not only platoon with Taylor, but also help get increased playing time playing all over the outfield, because Duran can play center, left, or right without a problem. Now, he's not necessarily going to be a dynamo defensively every single time. However, you certainly do get upside in his bat-to-ball skills, as well as what you're just getting in a really good, healthy balance of a player that can steal you north of 30 bags a year on any given day. And as we see right now for Duran, in 72 games this season, 335 plate appearances, he has 38 runs scored, 5 home runs, 35 RBIs. So he's currently on pace, to have himself a 10 to 15 home run season. Hopefully he could get himself closer to the 20 home run echelon there and have himself an 80 plus RBI year. I mean, that won't be bad at all in the case of Duran. 14 stolen bags, again, well on his way to a 30 plus stolen bag season. 264 average, 319 on base, and 417 slug, good for 1.1 WAR. I will say it is notable that since we talked about Duran last, he actually dropped in WAR by 0.2, and he dropped in his WRC plus by 6. He was 7% above league average last time we talked about him. Now he's just 1% above league average. So the bat has cooled off lately over the past week to 2+, I'm sure, for Duran, but it doesn't change the fact that he's a young, impactful player who still has multiple years of left to control on his contract, and making him not a free agent until the 2029 offseason there. And that alone is why Duran is attractive in the sense that you're not trading for a rental, but at the same time, you don't want to give up an arm and a leg for a player like him either. I think Duran has all the ability to be truly a fantastic player if the Mets were able to land him. I think there's a lot of versatility with someone like him, and if I look at Duran, he honestly just reminds me of just more of a true outfield version of McNeil, but better, especially when you look at his ability to consistently, hopefully hit for power that we can expect Duran to likely do greater than what we've seen a guy like McNeil do, even though McNeil has been tremendous this year, so he deserves the endless credit for going gap to gap in home runs as of late there. But if we look at Duran there and just take a look further at his numbers for a second, everybody, Duran did have 21 home runs and 75 RBIs last year, 111 runs scored. That's a difference maker with Duran. He is great when he's a true plate sitter at times, and he can drive in a lot of runs while also scoring a lot of runs himself. He had a 295 average and was 20% above league average as a batter at 102 games in 2023. In 2024, as a 27-year-old, he had that big year for the Red Sox we saw last season, roughly 500 on the slugging, and he's down in the points on the slugging at right around, 75 to 80 points down. So if he could get that slugging back up to closer to 500 than 400 that we've seen each of the past 2 seasons, and that's going to further warrant why to go out your way to trade for someone like Mr. Jarren Duran. And he had just under 7 WAR as a player last year. Kind of crazy how he was such a plus offensive and defensive player. This season he's been a negative defensively. Offensively he has been plus, however. And as we further expand from his savant numbers, they're not overly sexy this season, but again, not every player needs to have all the numbers in the red percentiles like Juan Soto to be productive, right? He's in the 94th percentile in base running value, 71st in batting run value, 26th in fielding run value, 34th in XWOBA, 43rd in expected batting average, 33rd in expected slugging, 86th in average exit velocity. Hits the ball hard, we know that. Also, a great story with Duran. Goes without saying, if you guys don't know, Duran has been very vocal about his previous issues there with mental health, especially on the point of suicide, and the fact that he's been so open and blatant about his past demons and how he's been able to get out of those ruts. I further commend him on as someone who's battled mental health as well. I certainly appreciate that. And it's very commendable to be as vulnerable as he's been, the public eye, the way that Duran has been, and to overcome that adversity, because he's obviously a very young, very exciting, and very talented ball player there coming out of Cali. And as we see there, 85th percentile there that we saw in bat speed, 71st in a hard hit percentage, not so great. Again, swinging at a good rate for sure in the strikeouts, 92nd percentile, however, in sprint speed, 18th percentile in outs above average, and 69th in arm strength. So speed demon, we know that can steal bags plenty. Doesn't have great range defensively this season, however, has been solid with the arm strength last season in comparison. You see the difference here, everybody. Again, he was just a lot more polished, so much more better defensively that we saw last season as well in the 95th percentile, playing all around the outfield. Arm value as well, strong. Everything was just better last year. So I'm curious if a change of scenery as well for Duran would bode him well with a team like the Mets, because after Rafi Devers has been dealt, I'm sorry, I know that Red Sox media is trying to go out of their way to push this narrative that they're going to really be all in at the deadline right now, but miss me with that nonsense. If you were really all in about this season, you would have never traded Rafael Devers for the first trade offered your way. And the fact that they didn't even bother to shop him makes it all the more discouraging, in my opinion, as to how lopsided I truly believe that trade is likely going to continue to be. Even with Devers being more of a DH than anything else, doesn't change the fact that he alone as a batter is tremendous. And I can't get over that deal, but I'm getting on a tangent now. Point is that because they were open enough to make that deal for Devers, and we've already heard the rumblings on a guy like Duran, it wouldn't be shocking at all if he's dealt leading up to the trade deadline. And especially when it comes to the current Mets connections, there have been rumblings that the Mets will consider pretty much all outfield options out there leading up to the deadline. It's not just Duran, it's Cedric Mullins as well that they've been connected to among multiple other batters. So check out our previous content on the platform going over other trade targets in case you guys haven't already, as I would love to know your further thoughts in the comments down below. One, are you for or against a Jarren Duran trade? And secondly, what do you think it would take to land someone like him? Because one, I absolutely do believe, and from everything I've seen around, it does look like Duran being dealt kind of feels inevitable at this point. But secondly, here's the thing. When speaking to my guy, Robbie Hyde, who does a fantastic job for his own MLBY content and for the Red Sox in particular, in a group chat with him yesterday, we asked, would he feel underwhelmed, like it was a low ball offer, if the same return that they got for Rafi Devers, they would get for Jarren Duran? And his response was yes. And that clearly shows you why. A $300+ million contract there that's going over from the Giants in full versus a player young on multiple years of control still, that's where the value is. So even in a trade where you got Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, a top 5 prospect there from the Giants, and a very high upside 20-year-old pitching prospect, he would want more than that for Jarren Duran. So if you could come up and formulate with a trade of similar value that's greater than the Devers deal, however, makes sense as to why it is to a degree. I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense. You guys can let me know in the comments, but would you be in favor of giving away some potential young exciting top prospect talent for multiple years of control of Jarren Duran and what he would mean for this Mets outfield configuration, getting some DH reps and just playing all over the place. Let me know in the comments down below if you're for or against it and what you think the right trade package would be to get the job done on that front. Because I think that between Cedric Mullins, who's a rental, and some others, I think the Mets can get enough production without giving up as much of a haul for someone like Duran and still being successful at the trade deadline. Not that I'm opposed to Duran. I am, however, opposed to giving up the farm for Jarren Duran. I don't think he is that deserving, nor does he have the track record consistently enough, in my opinion, to warrant that. But maybe I'm silly for saying that. I guess we'll just have to let time do the talking. But now, guys, let's go on from talking about Mr. Jarren Duran to getting into our next discussion of what is a plethora of topics to get into today, if I haven't alluded to that countless times already today, folks. But let's begin here more on the pitching aspect of things. And we're going to now head over here and we're going to take a look at not only these hats, everybody. Let's also take a look here just for a second. I'm not going to play the audio because the audio levels might not be to everyone's liking, but I am just going to show you here. It was very cool. As we know, Francisco Lindor did just get 10 years of service time officially accomplished, which is fantastic for him and the benefits that he gets from it throughout the remainder of his life, obviously. And there was a whole team meetup basically in the Mets family room there with him, all of his family, all of his loved ones, all that stuff. Ryan Mauricio seeing the background too, very cool. So Lindor was just saying how appreciative he is of this as he was holding his daughters, and I know his newborn son was likely there too with Katiana. So congratulations, Lindor and his entire family. Just great news for the captain, and honestly, again, truly one of the best faces in Major League Baseball in more ways than one. And now, guys, outside of Mr. Lindor, we do know that Brett Beatty, of course, is day-to-day there with that groin tightness that he sustained from the series finale against the Rays. We'll see what happens from that point on. But now let's get into a bit more on the pitching, because as we know, Sean Manaea didn't fare too well in his latest rehab outing. He allowed 4 earned runs there, 2.1 innings. However, wasn't terrible by any stretch, and I personally don't care what we're getting on the rehab outing front. However, what I do care about, everybody, and what I just realized long into the video, is that what I have down there on the graphic is wrong in regards to the smaller text. So I sincerely apologize for that, everybody. I did not mean for that to be the case. What I should have had right there, I'm going to just pull it up right now, if it'll allow me to do exactly that. I do think I will be able to do that. Here we go. Let's pull this up. That's exactly where it was supposed to be. My apologies, everybody. Whatever you guys read down there, that little graphic saying, Yankees preview, all that stuff, just disregard. If you were really reading it, that was from an older graphic a while ago. But getting back here to Sean Manaea and this Mets rotation, Sean Manaea, am I at all concerned when you look at Manaea, and then when you look at Montas? As we know, Montas was batting practice, didn't even go 2 innings, and gave up 6+ earned runs still. Not ideal whatsoever. So when you look at both Montas and Manaea, what is the concern level? I don't think it's overly for either, but especially in the case of Frankie Montas now, he's getting one more rehab outing that we know this week per Carlos Mendoza, and then they're going from there. So what is good, what is encouraging on the front of Frankie Montas, at least, everybody, for those that don't know that this has been reported, is that he does feel really, really good about his splitty. He's had more comfortability and more control from his last outing. That they figured something out with his splitty grip that he hopes to bode him well now for when he's added to this Mets rotation or utilized in whatever form or fashion they go on the pitching end. In the case of Sean Manaea, since the arm slot change, he's been a dynamo. He's been a workhorse. We know that going back to last season. And Manaea will continue to work his way back. Obviously, still a little bit of ways away. No, I'm not at all concerned with how these rehab outings have went for either, because all I care about is how they physically feel versus the results. Because if we care about the results, we're here stuck in spring training results being the end-all be-all still. And we cannot be that as fans, everybody. I understand maybe having reservations and somewhat concerns in the case of Montas, just because you've been underwhelmed, to say the least. He's had 5 rehab outings, and he's not really looked great in either. But it comes down to the effectiveness of how he feels, the arsenal, the pitch grips, and everything else in between. That is going to be the most important thing. So with Kodai Senga, who has officially been labeled with that grade 1 injury, so he's only out 2 to 4 weeks, which is the best news for Kodai Senga and for the Mets with that injury there. The positive from that, folks, is that hopefully as long as Kodai is not out any longer, then again, absolute worst, he's out north of a month. Hopefully he's back, say, 3 weeks from now. I think that's realistic, because he's going to have 2 weeks of not doing a whole lot. Then he's going to have his ramp up, so he's still going to be out there a bit. But even if you don't have Kodai Senga back until, say, the 1st or 2nd week of July, that should be fine for this Mets team, knowing that they're getting immediate reinforcements shortly in both Montas and Manaea. What you might get initially will be potentially underwhelming if they don't perform well at the major league level. And yes, that could come back to bite the Mets and the you-know-what should their pitching now get exposed in the weeks going forward. As we know, Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill, all these guys have labored plenty. As of late, Canning has a 6 ERA over his past 6 starts, and his K per 9 has dropped from a 9 K per 9 to a 7 K per 9. It has not looked good. The home run rate is obviously up. Tyler McGill just can't get out of his own way sometimes, it feels. He just has been sporadic and all over the place there when it comes to his control, his command, and just nipping around batters versus actually attacking them. I'm looking forward to Manaea actually attacking batters once he gets here. The same way I'm looking forward to a guy there in Mr. Frankie Montas, just seeing what he has for the Mets at the major league level. Good, bad, or indifferent. We need to get these reinforcements back sooner rather than later. Now with Kodai Senga out, you're going to be leaning furthermore on these in-house options for the Mets between Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea to step up and be the guys that they're expected to be. And if they do not step up, if say worst case scenario imaginable, Paul Blackburn, who does in fact have his start as a starter in Atlanta against the Braves this Wednesday, he's slotted. If he's batting practice, if Canning and McGill continue to regress, and let's just say both Montas and Manaea are underwhelming when they return within the next week or two to this Mets team, to the rotation, whatever it's going to be. Let's say just everything falls apart, everything goes wrong. What do you do then? Because the Mets obviously are not just going to go out of their way to prematurely trade for people ahead of the deadline, especially when you have even more in-house options than the ones that I currently just relayed to each and every one of you, including the following, everybody. When you have Mr. Jonathan doing what he is doing in AA right now, you're keeping tabs. You're at minimum taking notice. And Jonathan, for those that are not paying attention, has been without question one of the best arms the Mets have had in all the Mets minor leagues, if not the best arm the Mets have had in the minor leagues so far this season alone. Jonathan, guys, in his latest outing, when mind you, he has just been dominant after dominant after dominant. Each of the past month has been absurd for Jonathan, and I'm going to relay the following numbers here shortly, but 5 innings of 75 pitch, 2 hit, 0 walk, 1 earned run, 5 strikeout ball, a sub-2 ERA right now for the Rumble Ponies at the AA level there for Mr. Jonathan. But to further expand as to what has worked so well for him, not only is it that fantastic fastball, as we know, that has some late life. Love the breaking ball that you got there with Mr. Jonathan, a true starter type mix. But among minor league pitchers with at least 40 innings pitched so far, he is third in strikeout percentage at 40.7% to be exact. He's fourth in batting average, opponent batting average at 141, and third in FIP at 2.06. It's not a matter of if, but when Jonathan gets the call now to the Syracuse Mets. And then from Syracuse, how long is he in there before potentially being considered at the major league level? Now, obviously, I do feel that Noah McLean, who went 6 strong innings of true earned run baseball, his latest start a couple of days ago, I believe back on the 14th or so, very well could be the first man that the Mets consider of quality at the AAA level. However, Jonathan has done everything at AA to warrant the call up to Syracuse. Do not be shocked if you see Jonathan officially called up to Syracuse before this month even ends. I do think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And the last time that I made a claim like that was Noah McLean, and McLean was called up, I kid you not, 3 days after I made said statement. So the same now applies to Jonathan, everybody. I think he's going to get called up to Syracuse within the next 2 weeks, and hopefully that becomes a reality, and we see him not only get to Syracuse and then potentially impact the Mets before the season ends if they need him, which obviously wouldn't be great because they're going to rush him up, but also would be fantastic if that means that they could actually have this much depth, not only when looking at the MLB level, but getting into the farm of AAA with Brandon Sproat, Noel McLean, Jonathan, all there to pick wisely. Because as we know, the Mets do have some other options there in the Mets minor leagues. However, it does fluctuate on what exactly you are getting from these guys. Mainly when you look at Blade Tidwell, he just gave up 6 earned runs in his latest start that we'll get into in our latest prospect report before wrapping up the show, everybody. But we do have some other key topics that I want to share with each and every one of you. So let's go ahead and do exactly that, because we have some really important stuff, not just on the Jonathan front, because he's looked tremendous, but let's now talk on the front of other guys in Mark Vientos and Brooks Raley, because I got a lot to say on the Brooks Raley front in particular, folks. Carlos Mendoza relayed this to the media over the past couple days, but in case you guys didn't pay attention, let me remind you, because yes, as you guys can see right here, Carlos Mendoza did confirm that Mark Vientos will begin his rehab this Tuesday there in Syracuse. As we know, Vientos is coming back off of the 15-day IL stint, and we're looking forward to having him back in the fold for this Mets team. And the big question that we've all been pondering, at least I know I have over the past 24 to 48 hours, is the following. Is there a world where Brett Beatty, Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio, and Mark Vientos could all be on this roster? And the crazy answer to that is that yes, That can happen. But in order for that to happen, that would mean that the Mets would likely send down Jared Young as a corresponding move. Jared Young has been batting DH. He's been coming off the bench. A lefty bat option that they don't hate, but obviously he's limited in his ability. I think that we could set the lefty bat option to the curb when you already have Ronnie Mauricio up here. Ronnie had a home run in game 2 and the loss to the Rays and a single there in game 3 as a pinch hitter for Brett Beatty as he exited due to that groin injury in the series finale. So with Vientos, I really would love to see if the Mets just kind of let this be like a survival of the fittest to a degree. As long as it isn't hurting too much of the development of a guy like Acuna, especially because we know he's varied in his playing time the past month after being the rookie of the month there for the first month of April. Not so much rookie of the month there in the month of May. But as we get to June now, Acuna's latest start, he did go 2 for 3 in that series finale loss to the Rays. He was productive then. We'll see how much of a leash he gets, if at all, or if it's one of these youngins that is a corresponding move for Vientos when he gets back up to the Mets, which will be sooner rather than later. Mets fans, let me know in the comments down below, who do you think should be the corresponding move once Vientos returns to this team, and what would you like the configuration to be? Because for me personally, I do see a role where you could have Vientos and Mauricio both getting reps there at DH. It would further box out Starling Marte when he has been swinging a terrible bat, so that is something to bear in mind. But you could also have some games where, again, maybe you give Vientos a third base. Vientos should pretty much be DH or nothing right now, just because clearly the defense is a liability, and the more he doesn't play consistently at third base, the more he's consistently not going to be able to develop properly as a third baseman. But Ronnie Mauricio, though, playing all over the infield, not so great at times, but also not terrible either. Just depends on what you're getting from Ronnie. I think he's perfectly fine if you threw him at second or third base every now and then, along with splitting some time at DH. And then Acuna's one of those guys I wouldn't mind seeing get some reps at second base there, late game pinch running, defense replacement, all those kind of things. And Beatty, same applies, just getting more of those reps at mainly third base for Brett, because he's looked better at third than anywhere else, and he is the Mets' best defensive third base option. But if they feel like they're a little too boxed and that they're not going to be able to balance the playing time properly, then don't be surprised if at least one of those young players is sent down for the corresponding move for Vientos. Because Mark isn't going anywhere. Obviously, he doesn't have minor league options and is coming off of a rookie campaign of 27 home runs in just over 100 games and playoff heroics. Regardless of how you guys may feel about Mark right now, he does have the track record from this past year to tell you that he has the potential, and we have seen the flashes this year. We just haven't found it and its consistency, unfortunately. But guys, now let's go on from talking about Mark Vientos to getting into another key piece here, and that is going to be, yes, Brooks Raley here. As you guys can see, Anthony DeComo, even though we heard this initially broken by Carlos Mendoza days ago, it's just being reaffirmed now for people that maybe forgot or didn't see. Brooks Raley officially begins his rehab assignment tomorrow, this Tuesday, for Class A St. Lucie, and I'm ecstatic to talk about Brooks Raley, everybody, because in case you guys don't know, I'm a big Brooks Raley guy. Since Billy Upler traded for him and gave up the fellow southpaw reliever in Kashawn Askew, who I did like a lot then. Don't love giving up relievers to the Rays because Eric Orzi's having a great year. Kashawn Askew might be on his way up at some point if he hasn't been already. But still, though, Brooks Raley, this is a guy we got from the Rays, funny enough, as a Rays reliever, and that was a Billy Upler, Billy Big Bucks trade that actually benefited the Mets, because Raley was a nails for the Mets. What was an otherwise abysmal 2023 campaign for them, and even though they traded away David Robertson, they hung on to Brooks Raley, and Raley ultimately stayed in the organization. Now, he began the 2024 season, first 8 outings didn't allow a single run, then he went down with reconstructive Tommy John surgery, which is very unfortunate for Raley, because he was looking like he was going to have another stellar year for the Mets as their true lefty option out of the bullpen. But to expand on Raley a little bit more here, for those that have not been paying attention, this is an absolute stud of a southpaw option when as best for this Mets team. The 35-year-old southpaw, obviously, as we know, is I actually apologize, folks. The graphic I just showed you is an old graphic. That's when the Mets initially signed him, I suppose. So let's go back. I know I have a new Raley stats graphic, so let me see. That must have not been that. My apologies, everybody. Let's see if this one is it. That doesn't look like it either. 2025, that isn't it either. Where is my Brooks Raley stats? Hold on, everybody. We're going to find him. We have to find him, because if we don't find him, then I'm losing my mind here. Brooks Raley. There we go. There's the Brooks Raley stats. Again, swing once, swing twice, but I'm not striking out there. 0-2, we finally get ourselves the bunt single. Here's Brooks Raley, everybody. Again, 2024 numbers, very limited sample size. The Mets have him back, obviously, on a contract. He's no longer a free agent, so ignore that part of the graphic. This is when I made the graphic going back to this past offseason, when we were pondering if the Mets would bring back Raley or not, when he'd be out for a good chunk with Tommy John surgery. But given the fact they missed most of last year, meant that he would be set up to return midway through this season. And now that Raley is officially beginning his rehab tomorrow, this this is massive for a Mets team that are going to be getting a quality southpaw back. And if he's at all productive like what he was for the Mets back that we saw in the 2023 season, then that's huge, because Raley isn't a complete soft tosser, has some velocity, has some nice variety in his pitch mix as well, and I think is going to bode so well as both a low and high leverage option for this Mets team. I would still like the Mets to go after and potentially land one high leverage option for the bullpen at the deadline for, say, a rental bullpen reliever, especially. Then maybe you're not going to have to give up more than, say, a couple of has-been prospects for something along those lines. Really, however, this is a guy that could return the Mets as soon as potentially sometime there in early to mid-July, and then we will go on from there, guys. Expect a solid 2-3 tops 4-week rehab here for Brooks Raley. He's going to need to get ramped up big time, but once he's fully ramped up and ready, he will return this Mets team, and this is going to be huge to add this bullpen, because when you look at the current lefty options, it's just Jose Castillo, and you got to have more than that with both Danny Young and your high leverage option AJ Minter both out for the season with respective injuries. But going on now, everybody, from Brooks Raley, let me know your thoughts about him in the comments down below and how looking forward you are to seeing him back in this Mets bullpen sometime this summer. But going on now from Brooks Raley, everybody, because he could really dictate what the Mets do or don't do at the deadline as well on the reliever front, depending on how well he performs. But enough of Brooks Raley, everybody. Now let's go from talking about Brooks Raley to getting into a bit more there on the prospect talk in general, everybody. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. And let's begin the prospect talk by showing you the following, guys, if I didn't show it already. And here it is. Here it is. No, I'm not joking, everybody. What you see here is Mets top IFA signing from this past year, the 17-year-old Mr. Elian Pena on a Mets record $5 million signing bonus, and he goes lefty bomb. His first home run there that we see, his first professional home run, and he's had a very underwhelming start there to his pro career that we saw just over the past week or so. Didn't really have many at-bats going in his favor, but he's 17 years old. He just started, and he just went lefty tank there for his first professional home run. First of many for Elian Pena, and I want to hype up the dog because, man, oh man, is that exciting to see. We broke him down earlier this year that we know on the platform. Big signing bonus for a reason. The Mets do believe that he has all the potential to be one of the next greats, maybe potentially in the Mets organization. We'll see. Over the next couple years, we'll see how his development is, and if he could pave himself up to the major league level, potentially as quick as maybe a guy like Juan Soto or others, where they're in the league by 1920 versus having to wait until they're already in their early 20s, 21 to 24 range to get here. The reason why the Mets signed Pena to this signing bonus is because he has the plus tools to potentially hit the bigs within the next 3 to 4 years. And the idea that it might be sooner than that is crazy to fathom, but obviously we will see how his development goes and go on from there. Shout out Elian Pena. Congratulations on your first bomb there that we have seen at the minor league level for your professional career. But to expand there on Mr. Pena, let's also get into what is happening with the Mets on the front of their other prospects, because from their latest games here that go back to this past day, that being June 15th at the time of their previous games, because they don't play any minor leagues games usually on Monday, that being here the 16th. Let's start here in St. Lucie. They won 7-5, and the notables were that Colin Houck went 2 for 4 there with his 8th home run of the season. Houck is finally above 800 on the OPS, guys. Hype me up. 2023 first round pick Colin Houck at the hot corner, finally looking good. 248 average, 804 OPS. Love to see that. And that's the big takeaway that I have, especially Willie Fanes. Had 2 walks and 1 for 2 there. IFA signing from a couple years ago. And pitching wise, not a whole lot that I want to highlight there either. So now let's go on to the Brooklyn Cyclones. And the Cyclones won 5-4 in the 10th inning against the Taurus in their latest game. The Cyclones are a whopping 43-20 on the year, in large part because guys like Carson Bench, who hit his 18th double this season. Bench, who the Mets drafted in the first round last year out of OSU, good friends with Noel McLean as they were teammates together, and they will be teammates soon, not only at the AAA level, but certainly at the major league level. Bench, 2 for 5 with a run scored and 2 RBIs, a 304 average and 906 OPS. Ewing, 4 walks, 1 hit, 308 average, 838 OPS, batting leadoff in right field. He steals so many bases too. It's insane how many stolen bags Mr. Ewing has. He has 31 on the year. Marco Vargas has 19, and he stole 2 in this latest game as well. Shout out to Vargas. He's been playing decent. Suero's cooled off a little bit at catcher / left field or first base, but I love him there. The Bronx native still has just under 800 OPS. Boston Burrow had an RBI, which I'm not complaining about seeing, and Sean Manaea allowed those 4 earned runs, and then that was pretty much that. Ryan Ammons had 0.1 innings of relief and did it without allowing a run, which I like. He's a lefty option that I hope to see up to the next level sooner rather than later, which is the Rumble Ponies, and the Rumble Ponies tied the Flying Squirrels in the 10th inning, believe it or not. 4-4 was the final score, and the notables were Jet Williams ripping his 3rd triple of the past last week, everybody. Jet Williams, Jet the Met Williams, the speed demon himself, batting leadoff in center field or at short. This time he's in center. He went 1 for 5 with a big triple, a run scored, 296 average, 926 OPS. Call Jet Williams up to AAA. Thank you. Ryan Clifford, 0 for in this one, but still 837 OPS. Lugo had a couple RBIs in this one. O'Neill at catcher had himself an RBI, and that's pretty much all she wrote. Jonathan was fantastic. Moreno and relief was fantastic as well. 3.55 ERA now from Moreno there. Ross did allow 2 unearned runs. Ryan Lambert won 1.1 shutty with 3 strikeouts, down to 2.2 on the ERA for the flamethrowing young right-hander in the Mets bullpen, and that's pretty much it there for what you got at the Realm of Pony level. So last but not least, the Syracuse Mets, they lost 8-6 in their latest outing, and the notables were that we saw not a whole lot. I mean, Jankowski went 0 for 4 and a run scored and lead off with a walk. Drew Gilbert had a couple RBIs, but he's batting just 212 with a 685 OPS in center. Still has some work to do. VR at first base, not looking too great, but still has right around 800 OPS and a 1 RBI in this game. Joey Meneses 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs, 277 average, 781 OPS at DH. And De Los Santos, 2 for 4 that we saw. Hernandez, 2 for 3 at shortstop with 3 runs scored. Danel Nunez spot started this game again. And notable, the Mets have utilized Danel Nunez as a spot starter in 2 outings over this past week in Syracuse. And I wonder why that is. 1 inning, scrolls a walk, 3.79 ERA. Nunez will be back up in this Mets bullpen. Just a matter of when, not if. Blade Tidwell, 6 earned runs, 3.2 innings. Not good. 4 strikeouts, 1 walk. Colin Poche, 1 scoreless inning, pair of walks, 4.5 ERA. Tidwell's a 4.76. Chris Stavensky, 1.1 shutty, 2.42. And Dominic Hamill allowed a pair of runs up to a 5 ERA now as a reliever. That is what we got, everybody, from the minor league report, as that is also what we got from everything that I need to break down for each and every one of you folks. And one final thing before we get out of here, because it was just posted by the Mets themselves, All-Star ballot update. Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto are amongst the leaders for their positions. Vote Mets 5 times every day there. Make sure you guys vote Mets. Lindor, Alonso, and Soto are all looking great. Soto is currently 4th right now. When we look at outfielders out of the National League, trailing PCA, Tucker, and Teoscar Hernandez. He's in front of Corbin Carroll. Alonso right now is just behind Freddie Freeman and ahead of Michael Busch, Bryce Harper, and Luis Arraez. And then we see for Lindor, he's top place at shortstop on top of Mookie Betts by, oh my God, almost half the votes. Mookie Betts has just under 600,000 votes, whereas Francisco Lindor has an overwhelming over 1 million votes to be this year's All-Star. Yeah, I'm going to go on a limb and say Lindor finally becomes an All-Star for the first time as a New York Met. Oh my God, that's exciting. Beyond deserving. Finally, the fans are doing it right. Make sure you go out and vote, everybody, for our amazing Mets this All-Star game. Let's go, Mets, baby. See you guys for more coverage tomorrow. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is your guy, Wardy, signing out. Let's go, Mets, baby. Peace.